Good morning. The committee will come to order. Pursuant to notice, the Committee on Science and Technology meets to consider the following measures. H.R. 4847, the United States Fire Administration Reauthorization Act of 2007. H.R. 5161, the Green Transportation Infrastructure Research and Technology Transfer Act. And H.R. 3916, to provide for the next generation of border and maritime security technologies. I'd like to welcome everyone to this morning's markup, the first full committee markup of 2008. Today we will consider the three bills reported out of the Technology and Innovation Subcommittee with unanimous support. These three bills deal with public safety, improving the environment, and border security, addressing some of the nation's most pressing issues. H.R. 4847, introduced by Vice Chair of the Subcommittee, Representative Mitchell, and co-sponsored by the Subcommittee Ranking Member Gingrey, reauthorizes the U.S. Fire Administration. The U.S. Fire Administration is an important resource for our nation's firefighters, providing training, fire safety awareness for the public, data collection, and R&D on fire suppression and prevention research and technology. This important bill will help ensure the continued success of the USFA in its mission to protect lives and property from fire. We will also consider H.R. 5161, the Green Transportation Infrastructure Research and Technology Transfer Act, introduced by Chairman Wu. This bipartisan bill supports the development and use of green technology to protect our nation's water supply through innovative technologies and materials that can be integrated into transportation infrastructure such as roads and parking lots. By filtering stormwater and slowing runoff, green infrastructure mitigates pollution while saving money and energy. The bill builds upon the good work going on now in the Department of Transportation to promote green infrastructure widespread use. Finally, H.R. 3916, introduced by Ranking Member Hall, authorizes programs at the Department of Homeland Security to improve technology used to protect the nation's borders and ports entry. Border Patrol agents are responsible for securing nearly 7,000 miles of land borders to the north and south, as well as 95,000 miles of shoreline. Technology can play a vital role in extending observational capabilities, helping Border Patrol agents locate suspects and monitor the border more efficiently. Mr. Hall's bill authorizes important programs to enhance the Border Patrol's ability to carry out its mission by supporting short and long-term research priorities. It also ensures that new technologies will be useful to Border Patrol agents by mandating that DHS work to meet cost and training needs to end users when developing these technologies. I want to commend the T&I Subcommittee for bringing these issues to the committee's attention. All three of these bills were developed via regular order, process of identifying the problem, holding a hearing, and then developing legislation. I strongly support each of these bills and look forward to working with my colleagues on the committee to advance this important legislation. I now recognize Mr. Hall to present his opening remarks.
I thank you, Chairman Gordon. I'm looking forward to a productive start for the committee in this second session of the 110th Congress. Today, the full committee is considering three bills previously considered by the Technology and Innovation Subcommittee. As you've said, to begin with, we'll be considering the reauthorization for the United States Fire Administration. USFA provides critical support to our nation's firefighters through training, through research and development, and logistical support. This is an extremely important agency in this committee's jurisdiction, and I'd like to thank Mr. Mitchell and Dr. Gingrey for their hard work over the past few months on this matter. Now we'll be considering Mr. Wu's Green Transportation Infrastructure Bill, which provides funding for the Department of Transportation's University Transportation Centers to examine and hopefully implement technologies that significantly reduce non-point source water pollution from our roadways and other paved surfaces. Finally, H.R. 3916, a bill near and dear to me, focuses on the technology needs for the Border Patrol and the U.S. Coast Guard. We started writing this bill last year in response to a real need to develop and employ next-generation technologies to help secure our border. I'm pleased that many members of the committee on both sides of the aisle have co-sponsored this bill, and I'd like to thank all of you for supporting my bill. I thank you, Chairman Gordon, specifically for your support and guidance. These are all significant pieces of legislation the committee can be proud of advancing. I look forward to working with Chairman Gordon to ensure that these bills continue to progress through their other committee referrals and onto the House floor. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. You can be assured that we will all be working together to see these bills go to the floor and then find a way to the Senate. We will now consider H.R. 4847, United States Fire Administration Reauthorization Act of 2007. I yield Mr. Mitchell 5 minutes to describe his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very pleased that the committee is marking up H.R. 4847 to reauthorize the U.S. Fire Administration. This bill was introduced by myself and the ranking member of the Technology and Innovation Subcommittee, Dr. Phil Gingrey. The Fire Service provides critical assistance in protecting our communities in emergency events. From house fires to terrorist events to tornadoes, firefighters are generally the first on the scene and the last to leave. However, fire continues to be a major problem in the U.S. Although fire-related deaths and injuries have been reduced significantly since the Fire Administration's creation in the early 1970s, over 3,000 Americans a year still die in fires and many more are injured. There are also $11 billion in annual direct property losses caused by fires. The U.S. Fire Administration is an invaluable resource for the thousands of firefighters and emergency personnel around the country. Through training, educational materials, data collection, and other services, USFA provides tools and leadership to the fire service and the communities they serve. H.R. 4847 reauthorizes this important agencies for 4 years at the funding levels consistent for USFA to fully carry out its mission. It also addresses a number of priorities that members of the fire service community raised in the Technology and Innovation Subcommittee at a hearing last fall. This legislation authorizes USFA to focus its resources on pressing challenges for today's first responders, like fighting fires in the wildland-urban interface and responding to incidents involving hazardous materials. It directs USFA to improve the National Fire Incident Reporting System, which provides important data on fire events to policymakers at all levels of government. This bill also addresses a very serious issue for the fire service, and that is firefighter health and safety. As we heard at the hearing last October, every year over 100 firefighters die in the line of duty. USFA has shown strong leadership in promoting firefighter health and safety. H.R. 4847 directs the USFA administrator to continue this leadership by educating local fire departments on national voluntary consensus standards for firefighter health and safety and encouraging communities to adopt these standards. This legislation is the product of bipartisan collaboration and considerable input from the fire service community. 2 weeks ago, the Technology and Innovation Subcommittee unanimously reported this bill favorably. The resources and leadership of USFA are an essential part of the ability of the fire service to protect our cities, towns, and communities, and I urge all my colleagues to support this bipartisan bill, and I yield back.
Mr. Hall is recognized for any remarks he might have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm pleased, of course, the committee held a hearing on this bill and took the time to consult with both sides as you did and as you've done. I yield the balance of my time to Dr. Gingrey to speak on the bill.
Mr. Chairman, I thank the gentleman for yielding his time, and I thank you as well. As the lead Republican sponsor of the legislation, I would like to commend my colleague from Arizona, Mr. Mitchell, for bringing forward this legislation to reauthorize the United States Fire Administration. I'm very pleased that we have worked in a bipartisan manner over the past few months to prepare the bill that we have before us today. Mr. Chairman, I'm also pleased that this bill has also gone through the regular order process. In October, the Technology and Innovation Subcommittee held a hearing on the reauthorization of USFA, and just 3 weeks ago, H.R. 4847 was unanimously reported back to the full committee from the Technology and Innovation Subcommittee, chaired by Chairman Wu. The mission of USFA is to reduce life and economic losses due to fire and related emergencies through leadership, advocacy, coordination, and support. This organization provides vital assistance in the areas of training, fire education, and awareness, and awards grants to a number of local fire departments across the country. These activities have made a substantial impact over the last 30 years, as the gentleman from Arizona has just pointed out. Mr. Chairman, it's important to note that because of the work of the USFA, smoke alarms are now standard issue in residences across the country. Over 1 million firefighters have received advanced training, and firefighter equipment and safety continues to improve. USFA should be proud of its record of achievement. However, it's also clear that improvements can still be made. In the last 10 years, deaths related to fires have decreased by approximately 25%, from nearly 5,000 in 1996 to 3,675 in 2006. Although that decrease in fire-related deaths is commendable, the United States still has one of the highest death rates from fire in the industrialized world. Additionally, Mr. Chairman, despite decreases in the number of fires, direct damage costs are increasing and have surpassed $10 billion, that's with a B, $10 billion per year. Put another way, in an average year, fire causes as much damage in the United States as do hurricanes. The reauthorization of USFA will allow the agency to continue to improve our preparedness and reduce our vulnerability to fire. Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, last year we saw wildfires that ravaged Southern California, and the need to develop a more cohesive way of combating these fires. I am happy to see that this legislation specifically addresses the issue of fighting fires in an urban wildland interface by implementing methods to better respond and prepare for fires that move from wildlands to suburban and our urban areas, our cities. The current bill is an important and well-crafted step forward for USFA. I want to urge all of my colleagues on the committee to support the bill. Again, to thank our gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Mitchell. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Dr. Gingrey. Does anyone else wish to be recognized for remarks?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rohrabacher is recognized.
Yes, let me just congratulate the two gentlemen who worked so hard on this bill, Mr. Mitchell, and let us note that in the past, Kurt Weldon, who is no longer here, spent an awful lot of time on this issue and actually did a lot of laid the groundwork for the things that perhaps will bear fruit in the future and that we're building on right now. And so I'm just like to make sure that we put Kurt Weldon's name in the record, and when dealing with these issues, he spent so much time and effort as a member of Congress on firefighting issues. The second thing is just to note that Boeing Aircraft Company has recently developed new firefighting technology that will, and it's low-tech rather than high-tech, I might add, well, a combination of low-tech, high-tech, makes any airplane with a cargo ramp in the back, C-130s, C-17s, etc., makes them capable of very effective water drops. Technology uses GPS system, and it's a great promise. And I would hope that as we move forward, Firefighting Administration moves forward with this next 5-year authorization, that's one of the projects that they look at. So with that said, thank you very much for your leadership as well as the hard work of our two colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. Rohrabacher. Anybody else wish to be recognized? If not, let me just also thank, as Dr. Gingrey said, going through regular order, I think that we developed a good bill here. You know, oftentimes we don't think much about our firefighters until we need them. And this is legislation that affects real people. My mother grew up way out in the country. I mean, way out in the country. And when she was a child, their house burned. And literally, it was just their lives and the clothes on their back is all that survived. And even today, when my mother hears a fire truck or a fire engine or a siren, she tells me that story, just like she had never, told me before. It's just like Pablo, and it is such, it's such a traumatic experience for folks to go through that they will never get over it. And so we're not going to stop all the fires, but hopefully this bill will help reduce some of those fires and help reduce some of that trauma that folks have gone through. So if no one else wishes to be recognized,
Gentlemen, yield.
yes, sir, Mr. Hall.
I imagine there's a lot of us in this room that are glad that she pulled a little old kid out of there, too, and led him out to give us guidance and bring fineness to a committee. And as you said, it's kind of a shame that it took a 9/11 to make people really and truly appreciate firefighters and men and women that protect us day and night. Yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. I issue unanimous consent that the bill is considered as read and open to amendment at any point, and that the members proceed with amendments in the order of the roster. Without objective, so ordered. The first amendment on the roster is the manager's amendment offered by the gentleman from Arizona. Mr. Mitchell, are you ready to proceed with your amendment?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment number 020, amendment to H.R. 4847, offered by Mr. Mitchell of Arizona.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading. Without objection, so ordered. I recognize the gentleman for 5 minutes to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm introducing this amendment to H.R. 4847 to make minor technical changes to the bill. The amendment also changes the provision in Section 4 authorizing the administrator to deliver USFA training through qualified groups to qualified organizations that contract with other federal agencies to deliver training on their behalf to state and local emergency response personnel. And I yield back.
Is there further discussion on the amendment? If not, the vote occurs on the amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The second amendment on the roster is offered by the gentleman from Georgia, Dr. Gingrey. Are you ready to proceed with your amendment?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I bring forward...
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment number 014, amendment to H.R. 4847, offered by Mr. Gingrey of Georgia.
If you would repeat the amendment number so we are sure we're in the right order here.
Amendment number 071, amendment to H.R. 4847, offered by Mr. Gingrey of Georgia.
Great. Thank you very much, and I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading. Without objection, so ordered. The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes to explain his amendment.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I bring forward today a common sense, I think, amendment that will allow the administrator to perform studies related to the management of emergency medical services. All fire departments have a significant role in pre-hospital care, whether through in-house EMS or coordinating with third parties. Firefighters are called upon to extract victims from car crashes, building fires or collapses, or other emergencies. It's critical that patients receive consistent care under medical direction. I do not expect USFA to pursue studies into the medical care EMS patients should receive. This is best left to the medical community and other federal agencies such as NIH and NHTSA, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. But instead, Mr. Chairman, this amendment simply seeks to give the administrator the authority to conduct studies into training, system design, and on-scene patient management while making sure to work with appropriate federal agencies and existing medical services in these local communities. Basically, Mr. Chairman, to cut to the chase, to just be able to avoid the possibility of mass confusion at the scene of a fire where a lot of responders are there, and we want to just make sure that there's an appropriate handoff so that everybody is doing what they're best trained to do. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Dr. Gingrey. Is there further discussion on the amendment? If no, the vote occurs on the amendment. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The third amendment on the roster is offered by the gentlelady from California, Ms. Richardson. Are you ready to proceed with your amendment?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment number 014, amendment to H.R. 4847, offered by Ms. Richardson of California.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading. Without objection, so ordered. The gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ranking Member Hall and fellow members of the Science and Technology Committee, this amendment that I proposed before you is very clear-cut. The amendment calls for the Administrator of the United States Fire Administration to consult and work with the Superintendent of the National Fire Academy in order to consolidate and integrate into the current Fire Academy curriculum a course on incident command training for fire service personnel for fighting fires at ports and also responding to emergencies at ports and marine environments in general. When we recall incidences such as Hurricane Katrina and Rita, the one thing we have learned is how vulnerable our nation's 126 shipping ports can be in their reaction to a disaster. In the aftermath of that storm, ports from Alabama to Texas were entirely shut down, and many are still recovering, as in Port Fortune, a major supplier of gas and natural oil. Also, I would point out to you that the key of having integrated training, we also learned from Hurricane Katrina and the aftermaths of 9/11 that oftentimes we are calling from personnel in various different states. So where one particular state may not need the expertise of responding to a port, may be called upon to assist in another area. Likewise, we also know how valuable our nation ports are in terms of the goods movement and their impact on our economy. In some areas, ports can impact the nation's economy to as high as $1 billion a day that can be lost when they're shut down. Therefore, it goes without saying how crucial it is for our firefighters to have the ability to respond in a swift and efficient and coordinated manner. Every second in a response can make a difference between life or death and also the loss of valuable goods that we all depend upon in our daily lives. Always being mindful of not creating additional costs to our federal agencies and the limited budgets that we have. This amendment creates no new costs for the United States Fire Administration. In fact, this is not a new standalone course, but it allows for valuable lessons to be taught and learned that will be implemented in already existing courses at the Fire Academy. More importantly, this amendment grants the administrator and the superintendent the discretion to determine how they will integrate this course into already existing courses. This amendment provides for 2 years to implement this course so that there will be ample time for the Fire Academy to develop and deliver to our brave men and women the necessary instruction on how to respond to an emergency, if necessary, at our nation's ports. I want to thank my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, Mr. Bartlett, for his kind co-sponsorship and support, Mr. Roybach's ongoing partnership as we work together in our neighborhoods, and I'd also like to thank the science and technology staff, in particular Megan Housewright, for all of her hard work. And I would also be remiss not to acknowledge representatives from the United States Fire Administration who worked with us on this effort. In closing, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your support of this amendment, and it is straightforward as I've laid out. It's essential for the readiness of our men and women that we have an opportunity to learn from lessons across this country. It's vital that we provide them with that support and we protect our nation's economy. I yield back the remainder of my time.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. I know you had a particular interest and passion in this bill, and your input helped make it a better bill. Thank you not only for the amendment, but also the earlier work on the core bill. Is there further discussion on the amendment?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Roebacher is recognized.
I'd like to commend my colleague, Richardson, for the job that she's done on this amendment. It obviously is really an important amendment and covering an issue of great significance. Fires at our port areas that can be not only threatening to life, but are tremendously threatening to our economy. A out-of-control fire at a port can cripple an economy. We have had slowdowns and problems at our ports that cost billions of dollars to the American economy. And this a low-cost preventive measure that she's offering could yield great results for us in the future, and I commend her for their hard work on this amendment, and of course totally support it.
Thanks, Mr. Roebacher. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Bartlett, I recognized.
I'm honored to have the National Fire Academy in my district, and I go there a couple of times each year for very impressive ceremonies, and I'm very pleased that our committee has a large role to play in support of this very important institution. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Dr. Gingrey is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I too want to commend the gentlelady from California, who I know has the Port of Long Beach in her district, and there are many other ports.
Would the gentleman yield?
I'll be glad to yield to my
close.
friend
It's my district, but we share it.
That's right. That's right. I think Mr. Robacher, you surf outside some of those ports, but I'm glad to be supportive of our colleagues from California. And indeed, it's not just her district or his district that's so important in regard to ports. There are 300 or more ports across the country, and including 2 in my great state of Georgia, the Port of Savannah and the Port of Brunswick, and I'm sure the Georgia Ports Authority would be supportive of this amendment that the gentlewoman is bringing forward. But I do have some concerns. I worry that the current language of the amendment may shift scarce resources from higher priority needs in order to fund course development in this particular area. Mr. Chairman, the USFA is consistently funding, as we all know, below the authorized levels, and I believe the committee should resist the urge to micromanage these limited funds unless absolutely essential. I'm not saying that this is not absolutely essential, by the way. But additionally, I think that before implementing this amendment, hopefully the USFA needs to have a more complete understanding of the needs and current training protocols of marine firefighting. I mean, it's very possible that we are already doing a lot of that in the current curriculum. USFA should have the discretion, I think, to utilize their limited resources to best serve the needs of the 1.3 million firefighters across this country. For example, Mr. Chairman, one specific need outlined in this legislation is the necessity for better urban wildland interface firefighting. So I hope that the USFA will have the discretion to implement this amendment, Ms. Richardson's amendment, as it sees fit to best address this issue within the context of its greater role supporting the most pressing needs of firefighters across the country. And Mr. Chairman, as I say, I am supportive of the gentlewoman's amendment. I know she's worked very hard, and it's extremely important, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Gingrey, and obviously your concerns will be a part of the record. Is there further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
The gentlelady from California is recognized, Ms. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Gingrich, for expressing your concerns, and I'm happy that you shared them because it gave me another opportunity to make sure we're very clear. First of all, we met with the USFA several times and had the discussions, and it's my understanding they are in support of this amendment as proposed. We did have other options, but for several reasons why I think it addressed your concerns. Number one, the USFA is given the full discretion in conjunction with the superintendent. Number two, they do have 2 years to implement this, so it's not something, they have plenty of time to implement it into the curriculum with the normal printing, et cetera, not to increase any costs. Further, it's very clear, according to the amendment, that this is to be incorporated into existing courses, so there's no additional courses or time or anything of that matter. So thank you for your support of this amendment, and I look forward to working with you on its implementation.
It's my understanding from all involved that Ms. Patterson, Ms. Richardson spent a great deal of time massaging this issue and trying to get it right in consultation with all those involved, and that the final product is I would say, a hybrid improvement of the way things started, and that's why you have regular order. Is there further discussion? If no, the vote occurs on the amendment. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. Are there other amendments? If no, then the vote occurs on the bill, H.R. 4847, as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. I now recognize Mr. Baird to offer a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee favorably report H.R. 4847 as amended to the House with the recommendation that the bill do pass. Furthermore, I move that the staff be instructed to prepare the legislative report and make necessary technical and conforming changes, and that the chairman take all necessary steps to bring the bill before the House for consideration.
The question is on the motion to report the bill favorably. Those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is favorably reported. Without objection, the motion to table is reconsidered and laid upon the table. Members will have 2 subsequent calendar days in which to submit supplemental, minority, or additional views on the measure, ending Monday, March the 3rd at 9 a.m. I move pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 22 of the Rules of the House of Representatives that the committee authorize the chairman to offer such motions as may be necessary in the House to adopt and pass H.R. 4847. The United States Fire Administration Reauthorization Act of 2007 as amended. Without objection, so ordered. We will now consider H.R. 5161, the Green Transportation Infrastructure Research and Technology Transfer Act. I yield the chairman of the Technology and Innovation Subcommittee, Mr. Wu, 5 minutes to describe his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In May of last year, the Technology and Innovation Subcommittee held a hearing on green transportation infrastructure, challenges to access and implementation. It included witnesses from the Environmental Protection Agency, the U.S. Department of Transportation, and representatives from local government and private industry. The witnesses agreed that we have a great opportunity to manage and protect our nation's water resources through the use of innovative techniques and technologies that are simultaneously a part of transportation infrastructure and a means for managing and filtering stormwater. Green infrastructure includes materials and design techniques that help mitigate water pollution by managing and filtering runoff. The EPA witness at the May hearing, Assistant Administrator for Water, Ben Grumbles, is already making great efforts to promote the use of green infrastructure around the United States. But he and the other witnesses described a number of barriers to implementation of green programs, barriers which this bill works to overcome through research and education efforts at the U.S. Department of Transportation. H.R. 5161, the Green Transportation Infrastructure Research and Technology Transfer Act, authorizes research and education programs within the Federal Highway Administration and Research and Innovative Technology Administration's University Transportation Centers. These new programs at the Department of Transportation will advance the understanding of the benefits of green transportation infrastructure and its impact on the environment and help policymakers and builders make informed decisions about where and how to include green infrastructure in their transportation systems. The bill authorizes grants to existing university transportation centers for research and development of green infrastructure technologies, technology transfer programs, assessment of the impact of regulations on the adoption of these green technologies at a local level, and education campaigns aimed at local officials and builders. I will offer a manager's amendment today that will allow other universities with existing expertise in green infrastructure to form consortia with university transportation centers. The bill also authorizes FWHA to incorporate green infrastructure design and construction training in the National Highway Institute curriculum, which is offered to state and local highway contractors and workers. Green transportation infrastructure is a simple and exciting set of technologies that can help solve substantial pollution problems in our communities while increasing energy efficiency and potentially decreasing total cost. I look forward to working with members of the committee to pass this bill. I greatly appreciate the cooperation of members on both sides of the aisle, and I strongly urge every committee member to support this common sense legislation. Go back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. My understanding we're going to be having votes in about 10 or 15 minutes, but I think we have time to complete these important bills. Mr. Hall, you're recognized.
That's the chairman's instruction, to be brief, brother, be brief. So, this bill provides a direction exactly as Mr. Wu indicated. It provides for dissemination additionally of information through technology transfer programs, and also encourages state and local governments and private industry to adopt green infrastructure systems. And construction techniques. I would have preferred to stick with the language of the Earler's amendment, but that was agreed to in subcommittee. It was, but understand the majority's desire to ensure that relevant expertise at other institutions may be included at the discretion of current UTCs. So I don't oppose the gentleman's amendment. I support his amendment, and I thank you again for bringing this legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Does anyone else wish to be recognized? Ms. Johnson, who's an important lady because she's going to be dealing with this in the Transportation Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I simply want to thank you and Mr. Wu and Mr. Hall and ask unanimous consent to place my written testimony in the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Mr. Ehlers is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a brief comment on the one amendment by Mr. Wu. As you recall, during the subcommittee markup, I added an amendment to require that the funding go to the University Transportation Center program, which is a well-established program. I notice Mr. Wu has an amendment to expand that slightly to allow the University Transportation Centers to develop consortia with other universities with particular expertise in the topic before them. And I just want the committee to know that I have no objection to that amendment. I think it actually, if the other universities involved have the appropriate expertise, in fact, could strengthen the program and still maintain the requirement that the funding go through the UTCs. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ehlers. Does anyone else wish to be recognized? If not, then I ask unanimous consent that the resolution is considered as read and open to amendment at any point, and that members proceed with the amendments in the order of the roster. Without objection, so ordered. First amendment on the roster is a manager's amendment offered by the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Wu. Are you ready to proceed?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment number 001, amendment to H.R. 5161, offered by Mr. Wu of Oregon.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading. Without objection, so ordered. I recognize the gentleman from Oregon for 5 minutes to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment makes a minor change to H.R. 5161, the current language limits eligibility for green transportation infrastructure research grants to those universities already participating in the University Transportation Center program, and this would allow more of the additional funding authorized by this bill to go towards research instead of additional overhead and administrative costs. My amendment makes a small change to H.R. 5161 to allow other universities which may have existing expertise in related topics to form consortia with existing UTCs in order to apply for grants. This amendment preserves the benefits of the earlier limitation but allows UTCs to take advantage of the expertise of researchers at other institutions. This amendment also clarifies that universities receiving grants must have strong relationships with local and state governments in discussing research priorities. As we heard during our May hearing during a recent subcommittee markup, the types of green transportation infrastructure that are most effective vary strongly from region to region, and the bill deliberately provides grants to universities in different parts of the country to address this regional variability, ensuring that state and local transportation officials who are intimately familiar with how their regional climate affects transportation infrastructure, that they are involved in research planning is another way to ensure that end-user needs are met by the research performed by UTCs.
Thank you, Mr. Wu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there further discussion on the amendment? If no, the vote occurs on the amendment. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The amendment, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The second amendment on the roster is an amendment offered by the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Inglis. Are you ready to commence?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment number 041, amendment to H.R. 5161, offered by Mr. Inglis of South Carolina.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading. Without objection, so ordered. I recognize the gentleman from South Carolina for 5 minutes to explain his amendment.
And I'll be briefer than that, Mr. Chairman, to say this, that this amendment would make it so that industry and others in the private sector could participate in the centers, both in the funding and in the progress of the research. As I understand it, that concept is best considered under safety law reauthorization, and so with the chairman's commitment to work toward that end, to allow a cooperation between the private sector and the public sector, I'd be happy to withdraw my amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Inglis. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, excuse me. What was it?
What I was saying, Mr. Chairman, is that I understand it's probably best to consider this in safety lieu reauthorization, and therefore, if the chairman would join with me in an effort to make it possible for the private sector to participate, set up a structure so the private sector could participate in the funding and the research at these centers, then perhaps we could take it up as part of the safety lieu reauthorization.
Certainly, Mr. English, we welcome your suggestions, and we'll continue to work through this. And we have a number of members of the Transportation Committee on this committee also, and we'll try to work with them.
Great. So I'm happy to withdraw the amendment, Mr. Chairman.
And did you, the amendment is withdrawn. Did you have a second amendment?
Yes, I do.
Then the clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment number 042, amendment to H.R. 5161, offered by Mr. Inglis of South Carolina.
The third amendment on the roster is an amendment offered by the, let's say, I ask unanimous, I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading, and without objection, so ordered. I recognize the gentleman from South Carolina for 5 minutes to explain his amendment.
And, Mr. Chairman, I believe these are some technical changes that your side has agreed to, I hope, in the interest of time, we can proceed swiftly on these technical changes.
Mr. English, you've done a good job in vetting these, and they are approved. Is there further discussion? If no, the vote occurs on the amendment. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Are there other amendments? If no, then the vote is on the bill, H.R. 5161 as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Is Mr. Hall? Okay, I recognize Mr. Baird for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee favorably report H.R. 5161 as amended to the House with the recommendation the bill do pass. Furthermore, I move the staff be instructed to prepare the legislative report and make necessary technical and conforming changes, and that the chairman take all necessary steps to bring the bill before the House for consideration.
The question is on the motion to report the bill favorably. Those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. All opposed, aye. The ayes have it. The motion is reported favorably. Without objection, the motion is reconsidered. To reconsider is laid upon the table. Members will have 2 subsequent calendar days in which to submit supplemental minority or additional views on the measure ending Monday, March the 3rd at 9 a.m. I move pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 22 of the Rules of the House of Representatives that the committee authorize the committee to offer such motions as may be necessary in the House to adopt and pass H.R. 5161, the Green Transportation Infrastructure Research Technology Transfer Act, as amended without objection. So ordered. Let me make this suggestion. Mr. Hall has put we have one more bill. Mr. Hall has put a lot of work into this bill, and I don't think we should give it short change here. So we can either move forward, or we can move forward promptly, or we can go and have a vote.
It's been suggested we do opening statements and then do amendments. If we're going to do that, we might as well come back.
And I would encourage, again, Mr. Hall has put a lot of time and effort into this important bill on...
It's not my time, it's your time and the committee's time. They've really worked hard on this, and I think put their input work.
I agree, and so this shouldn't be rushed. We have one vote. Let's go vote, and we'll come back and proceed with this important amendment, important bill. All right, the committee will come to order. We will now consider H.R. 3916 to provide for the next generation of border and maritime security technologies. I yield to the ranking member, Mr. Hall, 5 minutes to describe his bill.
Chairman Gordon, thank you for holding this markup and for your co-sponsorship of H.R. 3916. It's been a pleasure working with members of the committee to move this bill forward, and I'd also like to thank Mr. McCall for the substantial contributions he's made to the bill. In his State of the Union address, President Bush emphasized the great importance of securing our nation's borders, and I believe this is a crucial issue for this committee to address, and I'm very pleased to see H.R. 3916 making steady progress. We wrote this bill that we're meeting the research to ensure that we are meeting the research and technology needs of the over 630,000 brave men and women protecting our borders on the Coast Guard and the Border Patrol. We have nearly 7,500 miles of land border with Canada and Mexico, over which 500 million people and over 2 million rail cars pass per year. In addition, we have over 300 ports that see over 9 million cargo containers each year. We have a number of reasons for wanting strict control over this traffic. Drug trafficking, for example, remains a major border protection problem. According to the Department of Justice statistics, over 30,000 kilograms of cocaine, heroin, and meth were seized within 150 miles of the U.S. Mexico border in 2006. I know many members of this committee have worked tirelessly to end the scourge of meth in this nation, yet success at restricting access to our meth ingredients here in the States has led drug dealers to import more across our borders. Stopping the flow of narcotics across our borders remains key to our efforts to curb illegal drug use that infects our cities and our small towns. The threat of terrorism also compels us to re-examine our borders, whether we're talking about foreign groups trying to infiltrate our country or homegrown terrorists seeking weapons and supplies. Our borders remain a crucial element of our defenses. Finally, in fiscal year 2007, U.S. Border Patrol agents apprehended 880,000 people attempting to enter the country illegally. While I understand the concerns many members have regarding comprehensive immigration reform, we should not allow that issue to stymie progress, deterring terrorists, deterring drug smugglers, and deterring human traffickers. I introduced H.R. 3916 to reduce the vulnerabilities at the border. The first three sections of the bill ensure that taxpayer dollars are wisely spent by requiring that the Border Patrol can use the technologies created for them and are regularly updated to meet their needs. Section 4 addresses the important issue of safely incorporating unmanned aerial vehicles into the national airspace. Before this promising technology can be used regularly, the safety and effectiveness of, quote, sense and avoid, unquote, technologies must be demonstrated. DHS has an excellent opportunity to work collaboratively with the Federal Aviation Administration to collect this necessary data. The tunnel detection program described in Section 5 aims at identifying and stopping smugglers trying to tunnel under other border defenses. Section 6 aims at defeating counterfeiting. The technology that this program will focus on will ensure that travel, import, and identification documents are safe and secure. Finally, Section 7 urges the Department of Homeland Security to conduct a study on the potential for GPS technology to aid Border Patrol agents in the field. These provisions will help local, state, and national agents control our borders. This bill will also ensure that we carefully plan and coordinate border technologies so that we protect the American taxpayer. I urge my colleagues to join me in support H.R. 3916 today. I believe this committee is really and ideally positioned to strengthen control of our nation's borders through this legislation supporting effective, efficient, and evolving border defenses. I also believe that this bill will be merged into any future and final immigration act that this Congress should pass before we sine die this 110th session of Congress. We are really building toward a secure America. I thank the chair and I yield back.
First, Mr. Hall, let me say that I very strongly support this bill. You've done a lot of work on it, but also it provides a common sense approach. I was just showing Mr. Hall the headlines of one of our publications that's come out here this morning. Says the first 28 miles of virtual border fence fail to meet expectations, GAO says. In other words, we've got about 102 $1.2 billion either spent or in contracts. And let me tell you what the GAO director says, and this is what he's going to say today in quotes. Border Patrol agents had a minimum role in developing the virtual fence and now say it does not fully address their needs. The hallmark of Mr. Hall's bill is that they go to the end users and say, what do you need and how can we make this work? Again, you're a year late, Mr. Hall, but we're glad you got it here, and hopefully this will help bring some more efficiency to this very important program. And Ms. Johnson's recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This legislation is very important for Texas, which has so many miles of land border with Mexico, and Dallas is also the location of a major inland port facility. The Dallas region is home to 5 interstates, good rail service, foreign trade zone acreage, intermodal facilities, and 2 reliever airports that could be expanded in the future. This infrastructure is susceptible to security breach. This committee has held hearings on border security and is aware that significant gaps exist in our technology to detect individuals illegally crossing our borders into the United States. We've heard that the current technology also gives false alarms as well. The statistics on illegal border activity are alarming. In fiscal year 2005, U.S. Border Patrol agents apprehended 1.19 million people attempted to enter the country illegally. In 2006, over 30,000 kilograms of cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamines were seized within 150 miles of the U.S.-Mexico border. The Committee on Science and Technology has taken a leadership role by passing H.R. 3916. The legislation directs the Secretary of Homeland Security and Director of Joint Planning and Development Office to research and develop technologies to permit routine operation of unmanned aerial vehicles for border and maritime security missions. It also specifies that the technologies be developed without degradation of existing safety levels for national airspace system users. The legislation requires research on technologies to permit detection of near-surface tunnels, which is particularly useful in the southwestern United States, and directs the National Institute of Standards and Technology to establish a joint research and development program on anti-counterfeit technologies and standards. Mr. Chairman, I want to commend the Ranking Member Hall for this bill, and that will direct the research to strengthen our border security. It's very, very important to Texas. Thank you, and I'll yield back the balance of my time.
Does anyone else wish to be recognized? Mr. McNerney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly want to commend Ranking Member Hall for this bill and for this what this will do for our national security. The tunneling aspect, I think, is a very important part of this. That's they have developed tunnels that can transport large amounts of material across the border, and there's other sections that are also very important. So I commend your work, and I urge everyone to support the bill.
Does anyone else wish to be recognized to say good things about Mr. Hall? It's all well deserved, and let me thank the members for coming back from after this last vote so we can get this good bill done. If there are no other comments, then I ask unanimous consent that this bill is considered as read and open to amendment at any point, and that the members proceed with amendments in the order of the roster without objection. So ordered. The first amendment on the roster is Mr. Hall's amendment, offered in the nature of a substitute. Mr. Hall, are you ready to proceed with your amendment?
Yes. I am, sir.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment number 036, amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 3916, offered by Mr. Hall of Texas.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading without objection. So ordered. I also ask unanimous consent that the amendment in the nature of a substitute be treated as original text for purposes of amendment under the 5-minute rule without objection. So ordered. I recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Hall, for 5 minutes to explain his substitute amendment.
Mr. Chairman, the manager's amendment I've introduced today closely matches the measure reported out by the subcommittee, but makes a number of needed clarifications to the original. First, the amendment makes clear that the technology transfer agreement requirements apply only to projects at the Science and Technology Directorate and do not apply government-wide. During my discussions with interesting parties over the last few months, I discovered that the original language gave some of the impression to some that these requirements extended throughout the federal government. The changes in this amendment make clear that the technology transfer agreements are those between the Undersecretary and another agency, such as Commons, Customs, and Border Protection. Next, the amendment specifies a one-year time period for the National Research Council study on the basic research needs of the Border and Maritime Division of the Science and Technology Directorate. This analysis will allow the preeminent scientists and engineers at the national academies to give input into the research priorities of the Directorate after being appropriately briefed on the technological needs and problems faced by DHS. Furthermore, the section on unmanned aerial vehicles now specifically includes research on autonomously piloted drones and collaboration with the Joint Planning and Development Office. These drones are designed to fly without direct human involvement, using onboard computers to steer, land, and perform a pre-programmed mission independently. The research performed under this section will prepare for the safe inclusion of unmanned aerial vehicles in our nation's airspace. Finally, and at the suggestion of my colleagues on the majority, the amendment ensures that the U.S. Geological Survey and the U.S. Coast Guard are appropriately consulted for the tunnel detection and anti-counterfeit programs. Finally, and of great import to our budgetary and economic fears, and as in Mrs. Richardson's amendment a little bit ago, this legislation should not have any cost associated with it because it authorizes studies and creates no new programs. And I yield back now. Thank you, sir.
Is there further discussion on the amendment? If not, the second amendment on the roster is offered by the gentleman from California, Mr. McNerney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk.
The second amendment on the roster is offered by the gentleman from California. Mr. McNerney, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment number 012, amendment offered by Mr. McNerney of California to the amendment in the nature of a substitute offered by Mr. Hall of Texas.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading. Without objection, so ordered. The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also like to thank, again, Ranking Member Hall for introducing this fine bill. It's a good bill. It will improve our country's security, and I'm proud to vote for it. I would ask all my colleagues here to support the amendment. My amendment is a modest but important addition which requires the Department of Homeland Security to analyze scientific research needs across a variety of disciplines. Specifically, my amendment makes sure that the Department's assessment includes an analysis of technologies that provide real-time and actionable data to the Border Patrol and other agencies that protect our country. I was fortunate a few weeks ago to travel in my home state to visit the Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. I was impressed by their commitment and dedication, by their professionalism, and also came away with a greater sense of the dangers and challenges they face on a day-to-day basis. After my visit, I believe that the improving in technologies for real-time tactical sense awareness will help the Department of Homeland Security better respond to potential threats and illegal activities on our borders. These agents and National Guard assigned to securing our border need all the tools we can provide and must have confidence in the effectiveness and accuracy of the information provided. Continuing to develop this capability, which includes but is not limited to those technologies already enumerated in this bill, serves a clear national interest. Better real-time technologies will make our country safer and more secure, reduce illegal border crossings, and allow law enforcement officers to respond to developing situations more safely. Chairman Gordon, I would thank you and Ranking Member Hall again and yield the balance of my time.
Not, then all in favor? Opposed?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk.
Amendment number 306, amendment offered by Mr. McCall of Texas to the amendment in the nature of a substitute offered by Mr. Hall of Texas.
Thank you for the opportunity. Let me first say how commend both of you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Ralph Hall, for your excellent leadership in a bipartisan way, as usual, on this committee, to put forward a bill that will really bring some technology resources to the border to provide better security at the border. It's an important issue for Mr. Hall and I, obviously being from Texas, but it's important for all Americans to have a more secure border. And I think this is probably one of the first and only border bills I've seen get through the House. Hopefully it'll pass well on the House floor. So thank you so much. I support the committee's efforts to provide increased border security through the use of next-generation technologies. Border technologies represent a key area for department's research and development efforts. My proposal calls on the Undersecretary to establish a research program to consider mobile biometric technology that can be implemented at the border between the ports of entry. Currently, biometric scanners and accesses to databases, such as for fingerprints, are available only at the ports of entry and at the Border Patrol field stations. Thousands of suspects for crimes ranging from assault to homicide have been arrested as a result of this advanced technology. But there is a disconnect between the capabilities at the ports of entry and those within the many miles between the ports. Agents in the field do not have biometric capability in their vehicles. The Coast Guard has undertaken a pilot fingerprint collection program employing mobile biometric technologies at sea. That program has resulted in 114 prosecutions and a 53% reduction in migrant flow. Border Patrol could also greatly benefit from such a capability. Making this portable technology available in the field will allow agents to identify unauthorized border crossers with criminal backgrounds on site in real time. Initiation of biometric checks in the field while waiting for transport vehicles to arrive will also increase the general efficiency of border crosser processing. I thank the committee for consideration of this amendment, and I again commend the chairman and ranking member for the overall bill. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Hall.
in support of the amendment, I just want to thank Mr. McCall for offering the amendment. He's a ranking member of the subcommittee on emerging threats, cybersecurity, and science and technology with the Committee on Homeland Security, and has a knowledgeable and he's been a very valuable partner on this bill. His amendment today has the potential to significantly improve the operations of the Border Patrol, and I certainly urge all my colleagues to support the amendment. Yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't realize you were the ranking member there. That's good. That's another connection. Hopefully we'll be able to.
If I could add, I think this bill was referred both to Homeland Security.
So we're in our mother's arms here.
We'll shepherd it through that committee as well.
Good. Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, the vote occurs on the amendment in the nature of a substitute. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The amendment, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. The vote is now on the bill H.R. 3916 as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. All opposed will say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Okay. I recognize Mr. Hall to offer a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee favorably report H.R. 3916 as amended to the House with a recommendation that the bill do pass. Furthermore, I move that staff be instructed to make necessary technical and conforming changes, and that the chairman take all necessary steps to bring the bill before the House for consideration. I yield back, and I thank the chair.
The question is on the motion to report the bill favorably. Those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is favorably reported. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. The members will have 2 subsequent calendar days in which to submit supplemental minority or additional views on the measure, ending Monday, March the 3rd at 9 a.m. I move pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 22 of the Rules of the House of Representatives that the committee authorize the chairman to offer such motions as may be necessary in the House to adopt and pass H.R. 3916 to provide for the next generation of border and maritime security, technologies, and amendment. Without objection, so ordered. And let me thank the members for coming back from the last vote. This was an important bill, and I appreciate your attendance. I want to thank the staff for the hard work that they have put in and the good work on doing this. I think we did a good day's work today, and I thank everyone. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Gordon.
Sure.